Look, I know it's the windows shutting and you're across everything here, but what about the situation with Crystal Palace? We discussed that, didn't we, on Sunday and yesterday? Obviously, this is due to them not potentially playing in Europe after winning the FA Cup, to this multi-club ownership rules. What's the latest?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, UEFA are looking at whether Crystal Palace have broken their rules on multi-club ownership. There's an American businessman, John Textor, who owns a share of Palace, and he also owns a share of Lyon. Both of them are in the Europa League. There was a deadline of March the 1st by which John Textor could have sorted out the ownership structure involving his share in Palace or Lyon, so that both of them would be able to play in the same competition. But he didn't do that because he wasn't expecting Palace to win the FA Cup and be in the Europa League, and he wasn't expecting Lyon to qualify for the Europa League as well. To cut a long story short, UEFA are looking at whether Palace can play in the Europa League. A decision is expected by the end of the month. Now, John Textor is willing to resign as a director of Crystal Palace to make sure that Palace can play in the Europa League. And we also understand that he is actually in talks to sell his multi-club group called Eagle Football Holdings. And Eagle Football Holdings owns a share of Palace and it owns a share of Lyon as well.
Gosh.
And if he was to sell Eagle Football Holdings, depending on who he sold it to and who would end up owning his stake in Palace and Lyon, that could have ramifications with what is going on between Palace and UEFA at the moment. So that's one we've got to stay across. Not necessarily new news, because we knew that John Textor was looking at either floating Eagle Football Holdings or selling it, or selling a share of it to investors. So that is one to stay across in the next few days.
It is. I mean, I know we haven't got much time, but in terms of who it benefits, you talk about ramifications, it benefits actually potentially Nottingham Forest, doesn't it, who dropped down into the Conference League and then could go up.
Yeah, we were reporting last night, first reported by the Times, that Nottingham Forest had contacted UEFA to express their concerns about Crystal Palace playing in the Europa League when John Textor owns a stake in Palace and also Lyon. Now, I think from Forest's perspective, Forest finished 7th in the Premier League, yet they're in the Conference League, and Palace, who finished 12th, are in the Europa League, which is the more lucrative competition. But of course, Palace qualified for it by winning the FA Cup, which is a major achievement. But Nottingham Forest, I haven't seen the letter. They are not commenting at all. UEFA are not commenting at all. But I would imagine what Nottingham Forest would be saying is rules are rules. It's in black and white in UEFA's regulations. You can't have a situation where one person has influence, decisive influence, I think is the phrase they use, in two clubs in the same competition. But of course, Crystal Palace would say John Textor does not have decisive influence at Crystal Palace. Steve Parish is the executive chairman. He calls the shots. And John Textor is so fed up that he actually wants to sell his share in Crystal Palace, which we've come back to where we started. Because we were talking about the fact that we think John Textor is actually in talks to sell not just his share in Crystal Palace, but also Eagle Football Holdings.
So it might yet get resolved. All right, thanks ever so much, Kaveh.